too busy celebrating Christmas to notice, but the government has opened up large parts of the East Midlands to fracking. The Department for Energy and Climate Change has granted exploration licences for oil and gas across the region and covering large parts of Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire, as well as parts of Leicestershire too. But how do the communities facing fracking feel? Our political editor Tony Rowe has been finding out.
A licence to frack? Well, no, not yet. It's a licence to explore to see if there is enough energy locked underground to be worth breaking out.
It's taken some time to wake up to the potential of shale oil and gas. One cabinet minister wrote in his diary that he was told shale was the solution to the world's oil problem. That was January the 11th, 1977, and the politician was Tony Benn.
The problem for opponents is to free the shale gas, you need to fracture the rock below ground.
Well, this is a map of Sherwood Forest. So we've got Ollerton here, Mansfield, Worksop, Retford. This whole area here is where there could be shale gas, and these are licence blocks.
And that was announced on the last day of Parliament?
The last day of Parliament was when they slipped through the announcement.
Fracking will, of course, take place underground, but those who object say the landscape near them will be blighted. It will, they say, become industrialised.
In Ollerton, there is both acceptance and reluctance at the idea.
In view of the fact that Ollerton is already the earthquake capital of the UK, I think that introducing fracking without the, I suppose, full information available, that I would consider it to be detrimental to the area.
As a whole, I think it's a good idea, fracking, to be fair. Obviously, take what you can out of what's left, sort of thing, and there's a way forward, isn't it? As long as there's jobs for people, mate, there's happy days, isn't it?
I think anything that's going to present opportunity for employment is positive.
I think it's a bad idea.
Understandably, people who don't have an idea of exactly how we go about our business have legitimate concerns, and it's part of our job to communicate to those people how we can conduct these operations in a safe and environmentally responsible manner. And I would point to the fact that we have been drilling and producing oil and gas fields onshore in the UK for well over 50 years, safely and environmentally responsibly.
Campaigners will continue to voice their opposition.
Nottinghamshire County Council seems to be really oblivious to the scale of operation that we could see across the whole of the Sherwood Forest area and large parts of Nottinghamshire. We've had small-scale oil companies in the past that are still going, little nodding donkeys in a field somewhere, and they seem to think that fracking is going to be something similar. Whereas in reality, if it's the sort of scale the government wants to see, then we're going to see thousands of wellheads across the country, and that means hundreds of wellheads in Nottinghamshire.
But the political will at the moment is to give fracking a chance to become an important part of meeting our energy needs.
Well, we're joined now by Kat Burtke, the Green Party's regional coordinator for the East Midlands. And Kat, some of the people that we saw there in Tony's film in Ollerton welcomed the idea of fracking. I think one, in fact, said happy days, bringing money and jobs.
I think this is mistaken. We know renewables produce far more jobs than fracking or any of the fossil fuel industry or sector. That's a fact. Also, the environmental risks are enormous. We know it increases the risk of earthquakes. It uses huge amount of water, of which 50% is lost, the other 50% is contaminated with dangerous chemicals. Health effects on people who live locally can be quite damaging. I don't think people are fully aware. However, having said that, we know that campaign groups, a lot of residents are starting to get quite active because a lot of residents do share these environmental concerns.
And iGas, the shale gas company that we saw represented in our film, says it is a very heavily regulated industry, though, with strict planning and environmental checks. So, you know, you talk about huge concerns, but they say they're strictly controlled.
Well, okay, let's play it. I mean, I disagree, and we have seen in Blackpool they've had earthquakes, for example. House prices have fallen consequently. But let's imagine there would be nothing going wrong. Fact is, we're going to run out of fossil fuels sooner or later anyway. So we're going to have to start a transition to renewables. And secondly, we are facing climate change. That's a fact. We've just seen December, the flooding, one after after the other extreme weather condition.
So these are your main concerns there about the climate. So Alan Rhodes, as the leader of Nottinghamshire County Council, people are going to be knocking on your door, aren't they, with these licence applications? What's the latest situation and how many are knocking on that door?
Well, I mean, there are concerns about fracking. I think what people need is clear and concise information about fracking, about the benefits and about any disadvantages and dangers that fracking
do you share
brings.
any of Kat's concerns?
Oh, I share some concerns. I feel as if I'm not well enough informed about fracking, shale gas extraction. I hear a lot of scare stories and a lot of things about...
But you've got to make the decisions on whether these things should go ahead. So how will you do that if you're not properly informed?
That's the important point. But of course, every application will be judged on its own merits, and we do have expertise in-house who will be able to guide us and inform us.
Are you generally in favour?
The only applications so far are for the very far north of the county in Midlands. There have been, contrary to reports and stories, there have been no applications to frack or drill in any part of Sherwood Forest or around the Sherwood Forest area.
So no licences have come to you for that area?
Not for that area, no.
Okay. Are you generally in favour of fracking? As the leader of
I'm open-minded. I'm open-minded about it. I'm never close. I never close my mind to anything. And besides which, because there are applications coming to the county council, I don't personally want to state my position on fracking because I wouldn't want to compromise them. So I am open-minded about it.
Kat?
I was just going to say there have been licences being given out, but I think you're referring to the planning applications that have been submitted. There's a difference between licences and planning applications, and I believe there are 12 licences.
Licences is the very first part of the whole step, isn't it? And then planning permission's got to come later.
Yes.
Alberto Costa, it's interesting, isn't it? This came out before Christmas, and the last sort of announcement on fracking was way back in August. Were you trying to sneak this under the wire just before Christmas and hope that nobody would notice it? It's such a big issue.
No, not at all. And I take a completely different view from the Green Party. I think this is a great opportunity for the East Midlands and indeed our country. Now, Kat and her party cannot have it both ways. She can't say we're running out of fossil fuels, therefore we need to look at something else. It's precisely because we need a diversified energy portfolio that I would encourage Alan and the Labour Party to go down the route of looking at that diversified energy portfolio, which includes fracking. The decision that I took as an MP, along with other decisions, was to pass legislation which makes it very tight indeed for the oil and gas industry when it comes to exploration of shale gas. There are very tight health and safety regulations that must be met. And the second thing that I must emphasise, Mary, is that the Green Party representative here has just said that we know of the dangers, allegedly. We don't know. These are not peer-reviewed papers. She talks about Blackpool and earthquakes. Where exactly is this evidence?
For
these fears?
There is a lot of evidence. And I mean, for example, we know that fracking, using the methane, has got a higher greenhouse gas emission than burning conventional coal. And we are facing climate change.
Government. Where's these earthquakes?
Well, it has happened in Lancashire, and it's been proven to be linked to fracking. House prices have consequently fallen. It has. Absolute fact. And you need to also... Your government has been subsidising...
This as absolute fact?
Well, there is. I've got to tell you. Your government has been subsidising the fossil fuel industry
on a
and
fact
has
that
stopped fossil fuel subsidised. We cannot move on like this. This is the future of our children. We are facing climate change. We need to have a transition to clean energy, and that means renewables, not fracking.
When we heard Nigel Lee, the protester in our film, he said that your council, Nottinghamshire County Council, Alan, is being rather naive here. He thinks that you think it's just going to be a couple of nodding donkeys, where in fact he thinks it could be hundreds of drilling rigs.
Well, I don't know why he thinks that. I mean, we are very aware that Nottinghamshire has potentially quite a lot of sites for fracking. I've never said publicly, and I don't believe personally, that it's going to be a couple of nodding donkeys if it takes off. So we are preparing ourselves for any number of applications coming in. We will, as I've said earlier, look at them on their merits. We won't, we can't say that we're anti-fracking, and we won't grant fracking applications. It wouldn't be right. I have to say this though, Mary. I think the government were wrong in relaxing conditions to allow fracking to take place in country parks.
Could I answer that?
I think that was the wrong
Very
move for the
briefly.
government to make and
Very
a very
briefly.
unpopular thing to do.
Well, the decision that we took in Westminster was based on real fact. The fact is this, that we've got some of the most stringent regulations